40 for Rateable Crest Titans.
Last time out in the AWDC Britpart Safari Championship, we saw Jason Rowlands taking victory after a good fight throughout the day. And it was a dusty day in Wales, wasn't it? With Douglas Devonall-Batt and Matthew Hall holding on to second and third place, respectively, as the event drew to a close. Round 4 of this year's championship heads to Minehead. And as is often the case, the sun was shining and a challenging course awaited our crews this weekend. On to the first of the day's runs, and picking up where he left off last time will be Jason Rowlands, taking an early advantage in the first 2 runs to lead by 30 seconds. This course famously has a mix of tight, twisty sections and open fields to contend with. There really was no room for error in the woods with these wider buggies. It wasn't all plain sailing though. A spin on the opening run close to the finish would show just how easy it is to get things wrong. Following on the theme of the round 3 results repeat will be Douglas Devonall-Batt at this stage. Second place at the moment, the older car fitting through the stages with a little more room to spare as well, which would give a small amount of room for error. Not that he would be wanting to use that margin. And third place at this stage will be Matthew Hall. Things looking good. A strong result last time out would mean he was looking at getting a repeat of that this weekend, or indeed a better result on the board if he could. But for now, it will be a 34-second deficit to the crew up ahead. There'd be a change for Philippa Tennant this weekend. Dad James acting as clerk of the course. She'd draft in Rob Bull to call the way. A reversal of their British cross-country roles, of course. This would be the first time on this course in the new car, but with Philippa growing up visiting this site, it was one she was excited to compete on. A bit of pressure on her shoulders perhaps as a result, and lying 4th place at this stage too, so handling it nicely. Jason and Deb Morgan make a good start to the event. No issues at all to report. They get to the end of the morning opening runs with 5th place overall. And of course, 5th in the class, as the event was once again being dominated by the Class 5 competitors. First of our other class runners will be Kieran Jones and Matthew Rowland. After working on the suspension, it will be good to see that hard work paying off, allowing them to put in some good times, in fact, setting the fastest times of the B-Maxwell cars at this stage, leading the way in Class 4 as well from a strong 6th place overall. First place in Class 9 will be Bruce Mallet. He was setting some strong times himself, the first being a little slower than the second as he bedded himself in, but that's the way things were meant to be. Things were going the right way. He leads the class, lying in 7th place on the overall leaderboard. For Paddy Barker, it will be 8th, a little way behind the others in the class, with those taking over the top of the leaderboard. But for now, 6th in the class will be an ideal end to those first runs of the day. This weekend will be the first time we'd seen Del Wheeler and Natalie Robbins in over a year. It took a little time to get up to speed after the time out of the seats, but things were starting to come back to them now. Apparently, it's like riding a bike. 2nd place in Class 4 at this stage, just inside the top 10 overall in 11th. The only trouble so far, in fact, was getting stuck behind a car in the tighter sections of the course, unable to get past. And rounding out the top 10 will be Brian and Mitchell Burge. They were enjoying the mix of fast sections and the tighter technical parts of the course, but they were having a similar problem to Wheeler up ahead, catching cars in the tighter sections. But they were at least still holding on to the lead in Class 6. There will be issues for a number of crews in the early runs of the day though. Paul Rowlands unfortunately having issues with the car, not managing to get a clean run in fact. Disappointing early end to this event. Leighton and Luke Dobbs would at least attempt a couple of runs, but they wouldn't fare much better. They'd retire as well this morning. And indeed, so would Rob Morris, the Mini not making it through a full run before having to call it a day. Let's move on then to some of the positions outside of the top 10 leaderboard. And it will be 11th overall for Adam Warts and Peyton Lewis. Unfortunately for them, a little slower on their second run, and that would potentially cost them a place at this stage. But 11th was still strong to be going into the next few runs of the day with. This will be the first time out in the car for Toby Cox in nearly 5 years. And after some major work on the steering, it will be straight onto the trailer and to the event with no testing this weekend, enlisting a couple of navigators in the form of Greg Finch and Tim Tennant to help him through and around this course. Second place in Class 9 for now, 12th overall. Just behind them on the overall results will be Barry Dodd. And by just behind, I mean 7 seconds. So it was close in that overall fight, even if Dodd was in a different class where he was lying in 4th place. Nick Collins, meanwhile, will be blaming Alison Brooke for navigator error on the first run, causing them to hit the wrong part of the course and send the car skyward in a similar fashion to that which they did last year at this venue. Thankfully, though, without the retirement this time around, maybe having a little bit of an issue with the car cutting out on some of the downhill sections as well. But they were still managing, despite all of this, to lead the way in Class 7. Second in that class will be Brian Dyke. And it was reasonably close as well, looking through the class leaderboard. Just a 14-second lead after 2 runs. And in fact, the first time that was fastest in the class so far. Only 2 cars in Class 2. And it will be battle of the Suzuki Jimneys, with Fraser Williams taking the early lead in his example. He had exactly a minute of an advantage in that position. A new radiator had been on the cards after the problems last time out, but that will be the only change for Jonathan Damrell and Nick Blundell this time out. They were hopeful of a good run, ending the morning's early runs with 3rd in Class 7, 17th place overall. Ed Smith and Beth Heaps will be the only ones in Class 3, so their fight will be for the overall positions. Sadly for them, they'd have an issue on run 2, losing around 4 minutes when the car cut out and wouldn't start up right away. They end this run 18th overall. The issue was an easy fix, meaning they could mount a fight back through the next runs of the event. Dave Marsh will be the second of the Class 2 Jimny fight this weekend, enjoying the varied course here and the small cars suiting the narrower sections of course, which was good. Bit of an advantage over some of the crews on the entry, that is for sure. He ends the morning second in the class, 19th overall. Ross Williams and Michael Lato had been warned about the trees at this venue not moving if you hit them. Same story pretty much wherever you go, and they were rightly taking it steady on the first run of the day to get a feel for those gaps between them. They end the morning 5th place in Class 4, 20th overall. In Class 1, it was a different name to usual on the top step of the leaderboard for now. Pete Broom leading the way after 2 runs, and with a good advantage as well in that position. Just getting himself in between the Class 1 fight will be Alex Russell, who ends the morning with 2nd place in Class 6, 22nd overall. Back to Class 1, and it will be 2nd place for Martin Clark. A little way from the class lead up ahead, but from there, it was a little closer. A number of crews in the class fighting it out for the other podium positions on the leaderboard. Third of those, and winner of the class on previous rounds, will be Daniel and Alan Wilcox. Their times consistent. They just needed to find a little more to move up the standings. And just a handful of seconds further back and ready for a fight was Thomas Parker. 4th place in the class for him, and with his eyes on that podium for the afternoon. For Margaret and Mike Bakewell, it would be 4th place in their class. They were running in 26th overall as well, and setting a time a minute faster on the second run of the day. Just one more crew for the Class 1 results, as we see Mark Perkins taking 5th in the leaderboard in that class at this stage in the event. Just over half a minute to the class crew ahead of them. For James Withers and Andy Kent, it will be third in the class. They lie in 28th place overall as well for now. And it was bad luck for Richard Mayer-Barron on his return to the series. A slight overshoot on this corner didn't look much, and he looked to have gotten away with it, but the car got stuck on the bank when trying to correct the mistake. It ended up costing him a maximum time, but with no damage, it was back to the start to reset and go again to try and get a finish here at the fourth round. So with the morning's first 2 runs complete, the leaderboard is shaping up like this. On to the next couple of runs, and it was safe to say that things were still going well for Jason Rowlands out front, extending the advantage at the top now to over 2.5 minutes. Looking like victory was his if he could stay out of trouble. Not always a guarantee on these events. Still chasing him down though, and ready of course to capitalise if there were any issues up ahead. With Douglas Devenall bat. Second place still his, and in a prime spot to take advantage of any events happening up ahead that were somewhat untoward. No change from Matthew Hall. He still lies in third place at this stage and still trying to keep that second place in his sights. The gap though was getting a few seconds bigger per run, and he'd need a few more seconds to have a chance at that next step up per run. Philippa Tennant and Rob Bull were happy with their times. Rightly they should have been as well. Fourth place on the overall leaderboard for now. And they were mixing it with the best and excited to see what the final runs would bring here. No change for Jason and Deb Morgan, a puncture on the fourth run of the day. Thankfully not seeing them lose any positions overall or in the class. So they had a bit of a lucky escape with that one. Ending run 5 with 5th on the overall leaderboard and indeed in the class. And things were still going well for Kieran Jones and Matthew Rowland. Matthew hadn't been out for a little while, but was here this weekend imparting some useful advice inside the car to help get those times down. They lie in 6th place overall and lead Class 4, so clearly something was working. No change for Bruce Mallet in these runs. He still leads the way in Class 9 and with a good advantage in that position as well. In fact, he had a good advantage in 9th place as well, over 40 seconds to the crew behind on the timesheets. And that crew, well, it was a change to the morning's order as Del Wheeler and Natalie Robbins step up a position in these runs to take 8th place now, themselves with around 30 seconds advantage in that position. But their place in the class remained unchanged as they hold on to 2nd in Class 4. That slight movement there at the expense of this man, Paddy Barker, slipping down a position to end run 5 in 9th place overall. Still up in the top of the leaderboard, but he wouldn't want to be losing too many more places through the final runs of the event. And still rounding out the top 10 at this stage were Brian and Mitchell Birch. They'd be going well. With only one puncture to slow them down a little, it didn't affect the overall results or indeed their lead in Class 6. So before we head into the final runs and take a look at how those final results overall were decided and in the classes, of course, here's a reminder of how that fight at the top is looking with just 3 runs remaining here. On to the final runs then of the event and a look at those crews who finished. And despite their earlier problem, it will be a finish for Richard Mayer-Barron. The times not going to allow for any advancement of the overall leaderboard, but a finish is a finish. And it was clear that he was having fun out there on the course, throwing that distinctive yellow Land Rover around to end the event 25th overall. Just ahead on the overall leaderboard were James Withers and Andy Kent. No change for the pair in the final runs of the event, ending the day 24th overall, 3rd in the class. There'd be a fair bit of change in Class 1. We were missing some crews for one thing in the afternoon. And of those left, there will be some changes as well. 3rd place in the class going to Pete Broom after a maximum on the final run of the day dropped him down from the lead of the class. Nick Collins and Alison Brooke will be determined not to let this event get the better of them after not finishing it on the last few attempts here. they'd have a problem with a leaking oil cooler as well on the penultimate run, a bit of added jeopardy. They'd opt to miss the last run in order to save any damage. Still, though, crucially classifying as a finisher, and that was good enough for the pair. They actually still take a third-in-class finish. No issues for Margaret and Mike Bakewell. They'd reached the end of the event second in Class 7 from 21st on the overall leaderboard. A good end to the event, and it hasn't been kind to them in the past, has it? Particularly last season. Back to Class 1 of a Thomas Parker. It would be second place in the class. This was a good, solid move in the right direction. Helped, of course, with issues for some of the others in that class. But a class result was good, however he got there. And it would be business as usual. And very relieved as well, Daniel and Alan Wilcox, who come back from a lower class position to take the eventual class victory. A good end to the event and a strong result for their championship as well. No longer separating the Class 1 crews, it would be an 18th place overall finish for Alex Russell this weekend. A good end to the event and taking second in Class 6 as well. Things hadn't gone to plan though for Bruce Mallet. He was going well right up until the last run of the day, when he'd take a maximum on the course, dropping him down the order and into 17th place overall. Not the finish that he came here looking for, but at least salvaging some important points at this point in the championship this weekend. In Class 2, there wouldn't be any change. Dave Marsh taking second in the class. He'd driven well. It was well deserved, with no issues either, but it wasn't enough for the class win this weekend. Ross Williams and Michael Lato would be happy with their finish though. It had all gone to plan, the car was working well, and they would take fourth in the class from 15th overall. They were enjoying their day as well, even if it was a hard course to conquer. Kieran Jones would have a change of navigator in the later runs. Matthew stepping out, and his girlfriend Luby Guest taking over. In fact, sitting in the car for their fastest lap of the event. Sadly for them, however, a snapped half shaft on run 6 would drop them right the way down the leaderboard, giving them 14th place overall at the end of the day, but crucially third in Class 4 here at the fourth round. And it was all good news for Jonathan Damrell and Nick Blundell. They'd take the Class 7 victory after a strong event with no dramas to report. There'd be some sore arms in the car though by the end after wrestling it through the tighter sections of the course. But apart from that, things were all good for the pair. They take 13th place overall. In that Class 2 battle then, it would be the red Jimny taking victory. Fraser Williams clearly pushing the little car around the course and getting the most out of it to end the event. 12th overall, and with that Class 2 win. Just outside the top 10 overall will be Barry Dodd. He ends the event 11th, and that was enough to take second in Class 4 as well. We're on to the top 10 then, and we wouldn't see any change for Brian and Mitchell Birch. They held on to that 10th place and the Class 6 lead. Only their third event in the car, learning round by round and clearly getting faster. It was safe to say things were going well, the car not missing a beat all day. Toby Cox, though, would just be glad to get to the finish in the car, proving to himself and to the rest of us that all that work he'd put in had been worth it. It was standing up to the challenges of the AWDC. He ends the event with the Class 9 win, and inside the top 10 leaderboard overall with 9th. And most importantly, of course, coming away from this round with plenty of confidence after a number of years out of the sport. After their earlier time loss, it would be a fantastic fight back for Ed Smith and Beth Heaps. They'd take the class win due to being the only ones here, but it was that 8th place overall that was the real reward for their hard work, setting some impressive times to move plenty of positions through the results during the day to take that result. For Paddy Barker, things had been consistent throughout the event, managing to stay in or around the same position on the results throughout. He ends the event 7th overall and with 3rd in Class 5. And it was a good finish for Del Wheeler and Natalie Robbins, returning to the driving seat and having a good run to take 6th place overall, the fastest of the non-buggy cars this weekend as well, taking the Class 4 win with that, of course. It was great to be back out, and they were competitive as well on such a great course. Apart from their earlier puncture, no issues to report for Jason and Deb Morgan. And that didn't really affect their results anyway. They take second place in Class 5 by the finish, fifth place on the overall leaderboard. No change or indeed drama for Philippa Tennant and Rob Bull, finishing with a fantastic fourth place overall. A great run would see them swapping times with all of those competitors around them, indeed, putting in their own fastest time on the final run of the day as well. We're on to the podium positions then, and there's really not that much change, either from the morning's results or indeed from the previous round. Matthew Hall takes that third place, a repeat of his finish last time out. He'd suffer some damage after getting a little close to a tree on the final run of the event on this course, but thankfully for him, would get away without having to stop or lose any positions as a result. Douglas Devenall back once again wasn't able to catch the leader, but he was able to hold off everyone else behind, taking another second place result and with over a minute of an advantage in that position as well over third. But taking victory this weekend and adding another win to the tally for the season would be Jason Rowlands. A good, clean drive would see him taking the win by a considerable margin by the end of the day, really boosting his championship campaign going into the second half of the season. So with round 4 in Minehead complete, the results at the top shaped up like this.
Jason, another win. Have you had a good weekend?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you. The trees are a bit tight, and Can-Am is a bit wide for the trees, and you got to think a bit more and just concentrate winning. And I win like 3 times now. Thank you for my dad helping me out. And yeah, pretty good weekend and pretty good result as well.
Yeah, we've had a good day today, second overall again, so really good fun.
It's quite narrow in there, but you've got a slightly narrower car than these guys. Has it been all right for you?
Yeah, they widened it for us, so it definitely helped.
Yeah, it's been good. Like, the car's been good again. Very, very tight though out there. It's lots of stumps, lots of stones, really close to the track, so you've got to be like really precise. You've got to concentrate all the time. It's quite a tiring event to do.
Next up, our crews head back to Wales, a new venue to the AWDC. And we'll, of course, be there to bring you all of the action from round 5. Thank you for watching.
Care 40 for Raidable Crest Titans.